The warning came on a cold Tuesday morning. It traveled across the galaxy at the speed of light, bouncing from relay station to relay station until it reached every corner of known space. The message was simple. The message was terrifying. The swarm had awakened. Ambassador was drinking her third cup of coffee when her communicator screamed with emergency alerts. She was stationed on Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the home of the Galactic Council. For 3 years, she had represented humanity among the stars. She had dealt with trade disputes, cultural misunderstandings, and the occasional border conflict. Nothing had prepared her for this. She rushed through the curved hallways of the station, passing aliens of every shape and size. They were tall and slender, their silver skin shimmering under the artificial lights. They moved in groups, their large eyes wide with fear. They marched in tight formations, their mechanical limbs clicking against the metal floor. Even they looked worried and they were supposed to be emotionless. The council chamber was chaos when arrived. Representatives from 30 different species were shouting over each other. Holographic displays showed star maps covered in red warning symbols. At the center of it all stood High Counselor, an ancient who had led the council for 200 years. His normally calm face was tight with fear. "Silence," commanded. His voice was soft, but it carried through the chamber. Everyone stopped talking. "We have confirmed the reports. The swarm has emerged from the dark space beyond the outer rim. They are moving toward the galactic core." Felt her blood run cold. She had heard stories about the swarm. Every species had stories about the swarm. They were the monsters that parents used to scare their children. They were the ancient evil that had destroyed countless civilizations before recorded history. Most people thought they were just legends. They were very, very real. "How long do we have?" asked the representative. His voice was flat and mechanical, processed through a translation device. "Based on their current speed and trajectory, they will reach the first inhabited systems within 6 months," answered. "They will reach the galactic core within 2 years." The chamber erupted again. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly united in their terror. Watched as the representative, a being made of living crystal, literally cracked from stress. They were already calling for evacuation ships. Raised her hand. It took several minutes before anyone noticed her. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only made first contact 15 years ago. Most species still thought of them as primitive newcomers, barely worthy of attention. "Counselor," said when she finally got the floor, "what do we know about fighting the swarm?" The chamber went quiet. Every alien eye turned to look at her. Some looked confused. Others looked at her with pity, as if she were a child who had asked a foolish question. "Ambassador," said slowly, "one does not fight the swarm. The swarm consumes. The swarm destroys. In all of recorded history, no species has ever defeated them. We can only run." "But surely someone must have tried," pressed. "There must be some data, some information about their weaknesses." The representative spoke up. "Our databases contain records of 743 species that attempted to resist the swarm in previous cycles. All 743 species are now extinct. The swarm does not negotiate. The swarm does not stop. Fighting them is not bravery. It is suicide." Looked around the chamber. She saw fear in every face. These were the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had conquered faster than light travel. They had built wonders that humanity could barely imagine, and they were all ready to run. "So what is the plan?" she asked. "Evacuation," announced. "The Council will coordinate a systematic withdrawal to the far galactic rim. We will establish new colonies beyond the swarm's projected path. We will survive as our ancestors survived before us. The swarm will consume what we leave behind, and eventually they will return to dormancy. In a few thousand years, our descendants can reclaim what was lost." A few thousand years, felt sick. They lived for centuries. They could upload their minds and live forever. A few thousand years was nothing to them, but to humans who were lucky to see 100 years, it was an eternity. "What about the species in the swarm's path?" asked. "What about the planets that cannot be evacuated in time?" Silver Face showed something like sadness. "They will have to make their own arrangements. The Council cannot save everyone. We must focus on preserving as many as possible." Pulled up her and looked at the star maps. Her heart stopped when she saw Earth's position. It was directly in the swarm's projected trajectory, not on the edge, not barely in danger, directly in their path. "Earth," she whispered, 8 billion people." The representative next to her placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I am sorry, Ambassador. Perhaps some of your people can be evacuated to a few million maybe. It is the best we can offer." A few million out of 8 billion. Felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these beings who had already written off her entire species. The Council voted that day. Every species voted in favor of evacuation. Every species except one. Humanity abstained, told them she needed to consult with her government before committing to any plan. The other representatives nodded sympathetically. They assumed she was in shock. They assumed she would come around eventually. Returned to her quarters and opened a secure channel to Earth. It took precious minutes for the signal to travel across the light years. When the connection finally established, she found herself looking at the face of Secretary General Park, the leader of the United Nations. "Ambassador," Park said, his face was gray with stress. "We received the Council's warning. We know what is coming." "Sir, the Council is evacuating. They are offering to take some of our people, but—" His voice broke. "Sir, they are leaving us behind." Park was quiet for a long moment. Behind him could see other world leaders gathered in the UN headquarters. The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of China, the Chancellor of the European Federation. They all looked exhausted. They all looked determined. "Ambassador," Park said finally, "how long until the swarm reaches Earth?" 8 months, sir. Maybe 9 if they stop to consume other systems along the way." "Can we evacuate everyone?" Did the math in her head. Humanity had a small fleet. Most of their ships were designed for short-range travel within the solar system. They had maybe 50 vessels capable of interstellar flight. Each one could carry a few thousand people. The math was brutal. "No, sir," she admitted. "We could save maybe 500,000 people, less if we want to bring supplies and equipment." Park nodded slowly. He looked at the other leaders in the room. Something passed between them, some unspoken agreement that could not quite understand. "Then we will not evacuate," Park said. Stared at her screen. "Sir." "Ambassador, humanity has faced extinction before. Ice ages, plagues, world wars. Every time someone has said that we were finished. Every time we proved them wrong." Park leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. "We will not run. We will not abandon our home. We will stand and fight." "Sir, the Council says fighting is impossible. They say everyone who has tried has died." "Then we will be the first to try and succeed," Park said simply. "Or we will die on our feet instead of running for 1,000 years. We need you to deliver a message to the Council." Straightened in her chair. "Yes, sir." "Tell them that humanity appreciates their offer of evacuation, but we must decline. Tell them that Earth will remain in the path of the swarm. Tell them—" Park paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was like iron. "Tell them that humanity will stand alone if we must, but we will stand." The next morning, returned to the Council chamber. Most of the seats were already empty. Species were not waiting for the formal evacuation to begin. They were already fleeing, desperate to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the coming storm. Counselor was still there, overseeing the withdrawal. A handful of other representatives remained, finishing last-minute business before their own departures. They all looked at with curiosity as she approached the central podium. Ambassador said, "Have you consulted with your government?" "I have, counselor." "And will humanity be joining the evacuation fleet? We have reserved space on several. Your people will be safe with us." Took a deep breath. She thought about her family back on Earth, her parents in Ayers, her sister in Tokyo, her nephew who had just learned to walk. She thought about every human who would not be saved. "Humanity declines the Council's generous offer," said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. "Earth will not be evacuated." Blinked his large silver eyes. "I do not understand. Ambassador, without evacuation your species will be destroyed. The swarm will consume your world. Your people will die." "We understand the risks, counselor." "Then why?" The old seemed genuinely confused. "Why would you choose death?" "We are not choosing death," said. "We are choosing to fight." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the automated system seemed to pause. Every alien in the chamber stared at as if she had lost her mind. "Fight," repeated. "Ambassador, you cannot be serious. Your species has only been in space for a few decades. You have no military fleet. You have no advanced weapons. You have nothing that could possibly stand against the swarm." "We have 8 billion people who refuse to abandon their home," said. "We have scientists who will find weaknesses in the enemy. We have soldiers who will fight until their last breath. We have mothers and fathers who will protect their children with their bare hands if they must." "You have hope," said sadly. "Hope is not enough against the swarm." "Maybe not, but hope is all we have. And we would rather die fighting with hope in our hearts than live as refugees for 1,000 years, knowing that we ran without trying." The representative who had offered condolences the day before stepped forward. Her name was, and she was young by standards, only 150 years old. Her silver skin was pale with emotion. "Ambassador," said softly, "please come with us. You personally, you do not have to die with your people. You have served the Council well. We can offer you a place on my personal ship. You can start a new life among the stars." Looked at, she saw genuine concern in those large alien eyes. She saw friendship or something close to it. For a moment she was tempted. She could live. She could survive. She could watch from a safe distance as everything she loved was destroyed. "Thank you," said gently, "but my place is with my people. I will return to Earth on the next transport." His eyes filled with something that might have been tears. "Then I will remember you. When the histories are written, I will make sure that humanity's courage is not forgotten." "Do not write us off just yet," said with a small smile. "You might be surprised." Over the next few days, watched as the great exodus began. Massive, each one large enough to hold millions of beings, launched from orbital stations and disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Entire fleets of warships, which could have been used to fight the swarm, instead served as escorts for fleeing civilians. Planets were abandoned. Space stations were left to drift. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy packed their bags and ran. Stood at a viewing window as the last departed from Nexus Prime. The station itself would be abandoned within the week. There was talk of destroying it so the swarm could not use its resources. Thousands of years of galactic history erased because no one was willing to defend it. Her communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth, from Admiral, the man who had been appointed to lead humanity's defense. "Ambassador," the message read, "we are beginning preparations. Every factory on Earth is being converted to military production. Every able-bodied person is being trained. We do not know if we can win, but we are going to try. Come home. We need you." Read the message twice. Then she looked out the window at the endless stars. Somewhere out there in the darkness between galaxies, the swarm was coming. Ancient, hungry, unstoppable. She smiled. "Let them come," she whispered. "Let them come and see what humans are made of." She turned away from the window and headed for the docking bay. There was a transport leaving for Earth in 2 hours. She intended to be on it. Behind her, Nexus Prime grew quieter and quieter as the last stragglers fled. Soon it would be completely empty, a ghost station orbiting a star that the swarm would devour. But did not look back. She was done with the Council. She was done with the species who had abandoned them. She was going home to fight. Humanity had made its choice. It would stand alone against the darkness. It would fight against impossible odds with whatever weapons it could build and whatever courage it could find. It would probably die. But it would die standing. And sometimes that makes all the difference. As boarded the transport, she sent one final message to the Galactic Council. It was short. It was simple. It was the most human thing she could think of. To all species of the Galactic Council, humanity thanks you for your concern. We understand that you believe resistance is futile. You may be right, but we are not very good at giving up. If any of you change your minds and decide to join us, we will welcome your help. If not, we wish you safe travels. When this is over, when the swarm has passed, look for us among the stars. We might surprise you. Ambassador representing the United Nations of Earth. No one replied. The message went out into the void and disappeared unanswered. But did not need an answer. She already knew what she had to do. The transport engines roared to life. The stars stretched into lines as they entered faster-than-light travel and went home to fight for her world. The great exodus continued. Species fled. Empires fell. The galaxy emptied. And on a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, humanity began to prepare for war. Admiral stood on the bridge of the UTS Defiance and stared at the holographic display before him. The display showed Earth, beautiful and blue, surrounded by the thin defensive line that humanity had managed to build in 6 months. 53 warships, 200 converted cargo vessels, 3,000 fighter craft. It was nothing. It was everything humanity had. Admiral, his aide said quietly, the scout ships have returned. The swarm is 2 days out. Nodded slowly. He was 62 years old. He had served in the United Nations Space Force for 40 years. He had fought pirates near Jupiter. He had negotiated tense standoffs near the asteroid belt. He had never imagined that he would be leading humanity's last stand against an alien invasion. "Show me," he said. The display changed. Instead of Earth, it now showed censored data from the edge of the solar system. Felt his heart freeze. The swarm filled the screen. Thousands of ships, maybe millions, moving through space like a living wave. The ships were not built from metal and plastic like human vessels. They were grown. They were alive. Massive bioships, some as large as small moons, pulsed with sickly green light. Smaller craft swarmed around them like insects around a hive. The whole mass moved with terrible purpose toward the sun. "How many?" asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. "Our best estimate is approximately 3 million vessels," his aide replied, ranging from fighter-sized organisms to capital ships several kilometers in length. "Admiral, our entire fleet could not destroy even 1% of them." Closed his eyes for a moment. 3 million ships against 53. The math was brutal. The math was hopeless. But giving up was not an option. "Begin final preparations," ordered. "All ships to battle stations. I want every fighter launched and every weapon charged, and get me a channel to Earth." The communication screen flickered to life, showing Secretary General Park in the command center beneath Geneva. Park looked like he had not slept in weeks. Neither had anyone on Earth. "Admiral," Park said, "we have seen the reports. How bad is it?" "Bad, sir, very bad, but we knew this was coming," straightened his uniform. "Sir, I want you to know that every man and woman in this fleet is prepared to fight. We will not make this easy for them." Park nodded. "The people of Earth are watching, Admiral. Every screen on the planet is showing your fleet. Everyone knows what you are about to face, and everyone believes in you." "I appreciate that, sir, but I cannot promise victory. I can only promise that we will make them pay for every inch of space they take." "That is all we ask, Admiral. Make them remember humanity." The The channel closed, turned back to the main display. The swarm was growing closer. In 2 days, they would reach the outer planets. In 3 days, they would be at Earth's doorstep, and humanity's little fleet would be the only thing standing in their way. Activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice would reach every ship, every fighter, every brave soul who had volunteered to stand in the path of destruction. All hands, this is Admiral. You all know why we are here. You all know what is coming. I will not lie to you and say that we are going to win. I will not promise that we will all survive. But I will tell you this. We are the only thing standing between that monster and our families, our friends, our home. He paused, looking around the bridge at the faces of his crew. Young faces, scared faces, determined faces. The other species of this galaxy told us that fighting the swarm is suicide. They told us that resistance is impossible. They ran because they believed that. But they forgot something. They forgot that humans do not know how to give up. They forgot that we have been fighting impossible odds since we crawled out of caves and faced down predators with nothing but sticks and stones. His voice grew stronger. Today, we face the biggest predator the galaxy has ever seen. And maybe we will lose. Maybe this is the end for humanity. But by God, we are going to show this swarm what happens when you back a human into a corner. We are going to make them bleed. We are going to make them hurt. And if we die, we are going to die so loud that the entire galaxy will hear it. He took a deep breath. All ships prepare for combat. May God be with us all. Out. The next 2 days passed in a blur of final preparations. Engineers made last-minute repairs to ships. Soldiers wrote letters to their families. Pilots ran simulation after simulation, trying to find any tactic that might give them an edge. The mood was somber but not defeated. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone was ready to face it. On the morning of the 3rd day, the swarm reached Saturn. Watched the video feeds from automated observation stations as the alien fleet passed the ringed planet. The swarm did not slow down. They did not stop to investigate. They simply flowed past like a dark river, ignoring Saturn and its moons as if they did not exist. They were heading straight for Earth. They are not stopping for resources, noted. They are coming directly for us. The swarm prioritizes populated worlds, his science officer explained. They consume biomass first. Planets with life are their primary targets. Saturn's moons are barren. Earth has 8 billion people. 8 billion people. 8 billion sources of food for the monsters coming their way. Then we meet them at Mars, decided. It is the best defensive position we have. Tell the fleet to move out. The human fleet accelerated toward the red planet. They arrived hours before the swarm, giving them time to position themselves among the Martian moons and orbital stations. It was not much of an advantage, but it was something. The Mars Defense Station was humanity's largest military installation outside of Earth. It had been built as a waypoint for deep space missions. Now it would serve as a fortress. Its massive rail guns could fire projectiles at incredible speeds. Its missile batteries held thousands of nuclear warheads. If the swarm wanted to reach Earth, they would have to go through Mars first. Established his command center on the station. From there, he could coordinate the entire fleet while the station's guns added their firepower to the battle. The swarm arrived at noon, Earth time. They came out of the darkness like a living nightmare. The first wave was the smallest ships, organic fighters that moved with terrible speed. Behind them came the medium vessels, covered in armor made of bone and chitin. And behind those came the capital ships, massive creatures that could swallow human destroyers whole. All ships open fire, ordered. The battle began. Humanity's weapons were not designed to fight aliens. They were designed to fight other humans. But it turned out that physics worked the same for everyone. The rail guns of the Mars station hurled metal slugs at incredible velocities. When they hit the swarm ships, the results were spectacular. The first bioship to enter range exploded in a shower of green blood and organic debris. "They can be killed," someone on the bridge whispered. "Of course they can be killed," said grimly. "Everything can be killed. The question is whether we can kill enough of them." The human fleet launched everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked toward the swarm, detonating in brilliant flashes that consumed dozens of bioships at once. Fighter craft engaged the enemy fighters in desperate dogfights among the asteroids. Laser batteries carved burning lines through organic hulls. The swarm died. They died by the hundreds. They died by the thousands. Every weapon humanity possessed claimed its share of alien victims. But the swarm kept coming. For every ship that humanity destroyed, 10 more took its place. The alien fighters were faster than human ships. The medium vessels absorbed incredible punishment before dying, and the capital ships, the giant monsters at the heart of the fleet, seemed almost immune to conventional weapons. The first human ship to die was the destroyer USS Hammer. She was overwhelmed by a swarm of smaller craft that attached to her hull and began eating through the metal. Her captain, Commander Sarah Wright, ordered her crew to abandon ship while she overloaded the reactor. The resulting explosion took out nearly 100 enemy ships. "Wright's sacrifice will be remembered," said quietly. "All ships maintain formation. Do not let them break through." But the swarm was relentless. More human ships fell: the frigate Courage, the battleship Thunder, the carrier Hope, destroyed while trying to recover her fighters. Each loss was a knife in its heart. Each loss meant friends and colleagues dead, families destroyed, futures ended. The battle raged for 6 hours. By the end, humanity had lost a third of its fleet, but the swarm had lost nearly 500,000 ships. The space around Mars was filled with debris, a graveyard of organic and mechanical wreckage floating among the stars. And the swarm stopped. Stared at the display, not quite believing what he was seeing. The alien fleet had halted its advance. The remaining bioships were pulling back, regrouping in a massive formation beyond the reach of Mars's guns. "What are they doing?" his aide asked. "I do not know," admitted. "They have never done this before. Every report says the swarm attacks until they win or are completely destroyed. They do not retreat." His science officer was frantically analyzing the sensor data. "Admiral, I think I understand. The swarm operates with a hive mind. They share information across the entire fleet. What happens to one ship is learned by all of them. So they learned that we can hurt them. For the first time in thousands of years, they encountered a species that actually made them pay a price for their attack. They are adapting. They are thinking about how to deal with us." Felt a strange mix of emotions. Fear, because a thinking enemy was more dangerous than a mindless one. Hope, because if the swarm had to stop and think, maybe they were not as unstoppable as everyone believed. "How long until they attack again?" "Unknown, sir. Hours, days. There is no way to tell." Made a decision. He activated the long-range communication system and sent a message on all galactic frequencies. It was a simple message, just 3 words, but he hoped that somewhere out there, someone would hear it. "They can die." The message went out into the void. It passed the fleeing refugee fleets. It reached the distant relay stations. It spread across the galaxy like ripples on a pond. For days, nothing happened. The swarm remained in place, studying humanity's defenses. Humanity used the time to repair what ships they could and reinforce their positions. More weapons were shipped up from Earth. More volunteers arrived to replace the fallen. The human race was digging in for a long fight. On the 4th day, a response came. It was from the fleet, halfway to the galactic rim. "We received your message, Admiral. Our analysis confirms your claim. You have destroyed 473,291 swarm vessels. This is more than any species has destroyed in the last 10,000 years. It is still not enough to stop them. But it is. Impressive. We will remember your species when you are gone. Read the message and laughed bitterly. Impressive. They thought it was impressive that humanity was dying slowly instead of quickly. That was the best they could offer. Reply to them, told his communications officer. Tell them that we are not done yet. Tell them that if they want to remember us as losers, they will have to wait a while longer. The officer hesitated. Sir, do you think they will respond? No, admitted. But I want them to know that we have not given up. I want them to feel ashamed every time they think about us. Maybe shame will do what reason could not. A week passed. The swarm finally began moving again, but this time they did not attack head-on. They split into smaller groups trying to surround Mars to cut off humanity's defenders from reinforcement. They had learned from their first battle. They were adapting. Adapted too. He pulled the fleet back to a formation. He used the Martian moons as shields. He set up ambushes in asteroid fields. Every trick he could think of, every strategy that had ever worked in human history, he tried against the swarm. The Second Battle of Mars lasted 3 days. Humanity lost another quarter of their remaining ships. The swarm lost another 1,000,000. The space around Mars became so filled with debris that navigation became dangerous for both sides. And still the swarm kept coming. Knew he could not hold Mars forever. The math was simple. Even if humanity killed 10 swarm ships for everyone they lost, the aliens would still win eventually. There were just too many of them. Admiral, his aide said on the morning of the 4th day, the swarm is preparing another assault. Our scouts report a massive force gathering on the far side of the planet. They are going to try to overwhelm us. Looked at the display. His fleet was down to 30 ships. The Mars station was running low on ammunition. The fighters were nearly gone. They had fought harder than anyone had expected, but the end was coming. Very well, he said quietly. All ships prepare for final engagement. It has been an honor serving with you all. He was about to give the order to attack when his communications officer shouted in surprise. Admiral, we are receiving a message from Earth. It is from Ambassador. Put it through. Appeared on the screen. She was standing in some kind of laboratory, surrounded by scientists and holographic displays. Her eyes were shining with excitement. Admiral, we found something. Our scientists have been studying the swarm ships that we captured during the first battle. We found a weakness. Leaned forward. What kind of weakness? Their hive mind. It is controlled by a central signal. The capital ships broadcast this signal, coordinating all the smaller vessels. If we can disrupt that signal, the smaller ships lose coordination. They become confused, uncontrolled, smiled fiercely. We can blind them, Admiral. We can make them deaf and dumb. How? We have developed a weapon, a kind of electronic virus. It will not destroy the swarm, but it will cripple their ability to coordinate. They will have to fight as individuals instead of as a hive. That changes the odds significantly. Felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. How long until this weapon is ready? It is ready now. We are uploading it to your systems. You just need to deliver it to one of the capital ships. If we can get the virus into their network, it will spread to the entire fleet. Looked at the display showing the swarm forces. Millions of ships, including dozens of capital ships. Getting close enough to deliver a virus would be almost impossible. But almost impossible was better than completely impossible. We will find a way, said. Send the virus, and Ambassador, thank you. Nodded. Make them pay, Admiral. Make them regret ever coming here. The channel closed, turned to his crew, and for the first time in days he smiled. Ladies, and we have work to do. The battle is not over yet. Somewhere out in the darkness, the swarm was preparing to attack. They thought they were hunting prey. They did not realize that the prey had just grown teeth. The swarm broke through the Mars defense line on a Thursday morning. Admiral watched from the bridge of the battered UTS Defiance as the alien fleet poured past the red planet like a dark tide. The Mars station was gone, destroyed in a suicide run by its commander when the swarm breached the outer walls. 2,000 brave souls, gone in a flash of nuclear fire that took 10,000 enemy ships with them. It was not enough. It was never enough. "All ships fall back to Earth," ordered. His voice was hoarse from days of shouting commands. "Regroup at the lunar defense perimeter. We make our final stand there." The remains of humanity's fleet limped toward home. 22 ships left out of the original 53. Most were damaged. All were running low on ammunition. The crews were exhausted, pushed past the breaking point by constant combat, but they kept fighting. Reviewed the status reports during the long journey back to Earth. The virus weapon that Ambassador had delivered was ready, uploaded to every ship's systems, but they still had not found a way to deliver it. The capital ship stayed at the center of the swarm formation, protected by millions of smaller vessels. Every attempt to reach them had failed. "We need a new strategy," muttered to himself. "Something unexpected, something they will not see coming." His aide, Lieutenant Commander James Park, sat down beside him. Park was young, barely 30, but the last few weeks had aged him decades. There were streaks of gray in his black hair that had not been there before. "Admiral," Park said quietly, "the crews are talking. They know we cannot win a straight fight. Some of them are suggesting alternatives." "What kind of alternatives?" "Ramming attacks. Load the ships with explosives, set autopilot, and crash them into the capital ships. It is the only way to get close enough to deliver the virus." Was quiet for a long moment. He had considered the same thing. It was the logical choice. Trade ships for a chance at survival, but it meant asking men and women to die. "We will not force anyone to do that," said finally, "but ask for volunteers. Make sure they understand what they are signing up for." "Yes, Admiral." Park stood to leave but stopped him. "James, if we survive this, I want you to know that I am proud of you, of all of you." Park managed a tired smile. "Thank you, sir, but let us focus on surviving first." The fleet reached Earth's orbit 2 days later. The lunar colonies had been evacuated, their populations crowded into already packed cities on the surface below. The moon now served purely as a military staging ground, its surface covered with weapons platforms and missile batteries. And beyond the moon, approaching fast, came the swarm. Positioned his remaining ships in a defensive arc around Earth. Behind them, every orbital station and satellite had been armed. Below, ground-based lasers and missiles stood ready. It was the largest concentration of firepower in human history. It still looked pathetically small compared to the alien fleet filling the sky. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "the swarm is entering Earth orbit. Lead elements will be in weapons range in 15 minutes. All stations prepare for combat, and get me a channel to Earth." Secretary General Park appeared on the screen. Behind him could see the Emergency Command Center buried deep beneath Geneva. Screens showed feeds from around the world. People gathered in public squares, watching the sky. Families huddled in shelters. Soldiers manned every defense post on the planet. "Admiral," the Secretary General said, "the world is watching. Whatever happens next, know that humanity stands with you." "Sir, I need you to prepare for the worst. If the fleet falls, the swarm will begin landing operations. Every city will need to be defended." "We are ready. Every weapon on Earth is pointed at the sky. Every citizen who can hold a gun has one." Park's voice was steady. "We will fight them in the streets if we have to. We will fight them in the mountains. We will fight them in every building and every basement. They will not take this planet easily." Nodded, he had expected nothing less from humanity. "Good luck, sir." "Good luck, Admiral." The channel closed, turned back to the main display just as the first swarm ships entered weapons range. "All ships open fire." The battle for Earth began. It was nothing like the Battle of Mars. The swarm had learned from their earlier mistakes. They did not charge blindly into humanity's guns. Instead, they spread out, surrounding Earth from all directions. They attacked in waves, probing for weaknesses, testing defenses. When they found a strong point, they pulled back and tried somewhere else. The fighting was everywhere. Above the Pacific, a group of swarm ships broke through the outer perimeter and had to be destroyed by suicide runs from 3 human destroyers. Over Europe, thousands of alien fighters swarmed the lunar defense platforms, overwhelming them with sheer numbers. Near the North Pole, a swarm capital ship attempted to land directly on the surface, but was destroyed by concentrated ground fire from 100 different batteries. Directed the battle from the Defiance, moving ships to plug holes, concentrating firepower where it was needed most. He had not slept in 3 days. His hands shook from exhaustion and too much coffee, but he refused to rest. His people were dying. He would not leave them. The first swarm landing succeeded on the 3rd day of the battle. A group of medium-sized bioships broke through the defenses over South America and crashed into the Amazon rainforest. The ships split open, releasing thousands of ground troops. The creatures were nightmares made flesh, multi-legged horrors with too many teeth and eyes. They began spreading through the jungle, consuming everything in their path. The Brazilian military responded immediately. Tanks rolled into the jungle. Jets dropped bombs on the landing sites. Soldiers engaged the creatures in brutal close combat. The battle raged for hours. Received the reports with a heavy heart. The ground troops were holding, but just barely. Every hour, the swarm landing zone expanded a little more. Every hour, more soldiers died. "We need to destroy those landing ships," told his staff. "If we can cut off the reinforcements, the ground forces can mop up what is already there." "Sir, we do not have any ships available," his tactical officer replied. "Every vessel is engaged in orbital combat." Made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Pull the destroyers from the African sector. Send them to South America. "Sir, that will leave the African coast undefended." "I know, do it anyway." The destroyers redeployed. They destroyed the swarm landing ships in South America. The ground battle turned in humanity's favor. The alien beachhead was contained and eventually destroyed. But the African coast was left open. 3 hours later, a massive swarm force landed in Nigeria. The fighting that followed was worse than anything had imagined. The swarm poured into the cities, attacking everything that moved. Civilians fled in terror. Soldiers fought back with everything they had. The streets ran green with alien blood and red with human blood. Lagos fell in 6 hours. Abuja held out for 2 days before being overrun. The Nigerian army was destroyed. Millions of people died. Watched the feeds from orbit and felt something inside him break. He had made the choice. He had saved South America and lost Africa. He had decided who lived and who died. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Park's voice broke through his thoughts. "You could not have known. You made the best choice you could with the information you had." "I made a choice," said flatly. "People died because of it." "People would have died either way. You saved more than you lost. Tell that to the families in Nigeria." Park had no response to that. The battle continued. More landings, more losses, more impossible choices. The swarm kept coming, endless waves of ships and troops that humanity could not stop. But humanity kept fighting. In Tokyo, a retired physics professor named discovered a flaw in the swarm's communication system. Working from a basement laboratory, he developed a jamming signal that could disrupt the hive mind for short periods. His invention was rushed into production and distributed to every military unit on the planet. Suddenly, the alien ground troops were easier to kill. They lost coordination. They made mistakes. In New York, a teenage hacker named Maria Santos broke into the swarm's data network. She did not fully understand what she was looking at, but she recorded everything and sent it to military intelligence. The information she gathered revealed the location of the main swarm command ship, hidden at the center of the alien fleet. In Mumbai, a cargo pilot named Raj was evacuating wounded soldiers when a swarm fighter attacked his transport. His engines were destroyed. He was going to crash into a hospital filled with refugees. Instead, he turned his ship toward a swarm carrier that was launching more fighters. He rammed his transport into the carrier's hangar bay, destroying both ships. The carrier's death saved the hospital. Raj became a hero. Schools were named after him. Songs were written about him, but he never knew. He died in the crash, just another name on the endless list of the fallen. Stories like these repeated across the globe. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, sacrificing themselves so others could live, fighting back against impossible odds with whatever weapons they could find. The swarm had never encountered anything like it. In all their millions of years of conquest, the swarm had faced many species. Some had been technologically advanced. Some had been physically powerful. Some had possessed weapons that could destroy planets. All of them had eventually broken. All of them had reached a point where they stopped fighting and started running. Humanity refused to break. On the 5th day of the battle, Admiral received a message from the swarm. It was the first time the aliens had ever tried to communicate with a species they were attacking. The message was simple, translated by the best alien linguists available. Why do you continue? You cannot win. Stop fighting. Submit. Your suffering will end. Stared at the message for a long time. Then he wrote a reply. We continue because we are human. We cannot win, but we can make you pay such a price that you will remember us forever. We will not submit. We will not stop fighting. And when the last human dies, they will die spitting in your face. He sent the message and returned to the battle. The swarm responded with the largest assault yet. Every ship they had threw themselves at Earth's defenses. The sky burned with weapons fire. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes that could be seen from the surface. The lunar defense platforms were overrun and destroyed. Half of humanity's remaining fleet was wiped out in a single hour. But the assault failed. The swarm could not break through to Earth's surface in force. Their losses were enormous, even by their standards. For the first time in the battle, the alien fleet pulled back to regroup. Looked at the status displays. He had 12 ships left. Earth's surface defenses were battered but intact. The swarm still had millions of vessels, but they had lost nearly half their original force. We are still here, he said to no one in particular. By God, we are still here. His communications officer looked up from her station. Admiral, we are receiving transmissions from the galactic rim, multiple sources. The fleeing species, they are watching us. What are they saying? They are, the officer paused, listening to her earpiece. They are calling us insane. They say no species has ever survived this long against the swarm. They say it is impossible. Laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. Tell them that impossible is just another word for something that has not been done yet. The battle continued. The swarm attacked again and again. Humanity defended again and again. Days blurred together. Victories and defeats blended into an endless nightmare of combat and death. And then on the 14th day, something changed. Was in his quarters, trying to get a few hours of sleep, when Park burst in without knocking. Admiral, you need to see this. The swarm, they are retreating. Was on the bridge in seconds. The main display showed the alien fleet pulling back, not just regrouping, but actually withdrawing from Earth's orbit. The massive bioships that had filled the sky for weeks were turning away, heading back toward deep space. What is happening? Demanded. Is this a trick? We do not know, sir, but look at this. Park switched the display to long-range sensors. Eyes went wide. Ships, hundreds of ships, coming from the direction of the galactic rim. Not swarm ships. These were built from metal and composite, proper civilized vessels, and they were coming fast. Admiral, the communications officer reported, her voice shaking. We are receiving a message. It is from High Counselor of the Galactic Council. Felt like he might collapse. Put it through. The ancient appeared on screen. His silver face was unreadable, but his eyes were bright. Admiral Humanity, we have been watching your struggle. We have seen you fight against impossible odds. We have seen you refuse to surrender, refuse to run, refuse to die quietly. Paused. We were wrong to abandon you. We are coming back. We are coming to fight. Tried to speak, but no words came out. He looked around the bridge at his exhausted, battered crew. They were staring at the screen with expressions of disbelief. The fleet is 2 hours behind us, continued. They are mobilizing their energy weapons. They are being converted to carriers. Every species that fled is returning. You showed us something we had forgotten, Admiral. You showed us how to be brave. Finally found his voice. Counselor, why now? His answer was simple. Because you made us ashamed. You, the youngest and weakest species in the galaxy, stood and fought while we ran. Every day we watched you dying, and every day we felt the shame grow heavier. We could not live with ourselves if we let you fall alone. The swarm, sensing the approaching threat, began to withdraw faster. They had not expected reinforcements. They had not planned for the entire galaxy turning against them. Straightened in his chair. His exhaustion was still there, but underneath it he felt something new, something that felt like hope. Counselor, he said, it is good to have you back. Now pick a target and start shooting. On the screen, the first warships entered Earth's orbit. Their guns were already firing. The tide of the war had turned. High Matriarch stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn and watched the blue planet grow larger in the viewing window. Earth, the human, the place where the galaxy's youngest species had done the impossible. Matriarch, her aide said softly, we are receiving updated tactical data from the human fleet. The swarm is in full retreat. They are regrouping near the outer planets. How many do they have left? Approximately 1.2 million vessels. The humans destroyed nearly 2 million before we arrived. Closed her large silver eyes for a moment. 2 million vessels. Her own species had never destroyed more than a few thousand swarm ships in any battle throughout their long history, and they had always lost those battles eventually. But the humans had not lost. They were battered, bleeding, pushed to the edge of extinction, but they had not lost. Signal Admiral, ordered. Tell him the fleet is at his disposal. We will follow his command in this battle. Her aide hesitated. Matriarch, some of the captains are questioning that decision, is a human. He has only been fighting in space for a few decades. Our officers have centuries of experience. And how many swarm ships have our centuries of experience destroyed? Asked quietly. The aide had no answer. The humans know how to fight this enemy. We do not. We will learn from them. Turned away from the window. Send the signal. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Defiance and tried to process what had happened in the last 24 hours. Just yesterday, he had been preparing for humanity's final stand. Now, the space around Earth was filling with allied ships from a dozen different species. They had arrived first, their sleek silver vessels moving with elegant precision. Behind them came their ships bristling with weapons that made human technology look primitive. They brought their crystal ships, strange and beautiful, powered by energy systems that no one fully understood. Even the small species had come, the ones without warships, bringing supply vessels and medical frigates and anything else they could offer. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, and they were all looking to for orders. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Park said, the species representatives are requesting a strategic briefing. They want to know the plan. Laughed tiredly. The plan, right. He had been making up the plan as he went along for weeks. He supposed he should try to sound more professional now. Set up a conference call with all fleet commanders. Let us figure out how to win this war. The holographic conference room filled with faces. A dozen other species that barely recognized. They all looked at him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. He was the human who had made the swarm bleed. He was the man who had done the impossible. Ladies and others began. Thank you for coming. I know many of you traveled a long way to be here, and I know some of you probably think joining this fight is crazy. He paused. You might be right, but since we are all here, we might as well win. A ripple of something like amusement passed through the assembled commanders. Here is the situation. The swarm has retreated to the outer system, but they have not left. Our intelligence suggests they are waiting for something. Maybe reinforcements. Maybe they are trying to figure out what to do next. Either way, we cannot let them regroup. He pulled up a tactical display showing the swarm's current position. The key to defeating them is their hive mind. They coordinate through a central signal broadcast from their capital ships. We have developed a virus that can disrupt this signal. If we can deliver it to one of the main command ships, it will spread through their entire network. The swarm will lose coordination. They will be vulnerable. The War Admiral, a massive being whose body was more machine than organic, spoke up. How do you propose to deliver this virus? Our analysis shows that the capital ships are heavily protected. That is where you come in, said. The human fleet is too damaged to punch through their defenses alone, but with your ships, we can create an opening. We hit them with everything we have, draw their attention to multiple fronts, and create a gap for a strike team to reach the command ship. A strike team, the repeated. You mean a suicide mission? I mean a mission with a low probability of survival, corrected. But not zero. We have volunteers. Leaned forward. Admiral, that would be honored to provide ships for this mission. Our pilots are among the best in the galaxy. As are ours, the said quickly. The will not be outdone in bravery. Soon every species was offering volunteers, held up a hand to stop them. I appreciate the offers, but this mission requires human ships. We designed the virus. We know how to deliver it, and, he paused, choosing his words carefully. This is our fight. You all came to help us, and we are grateful, but the strike team should be human. It is only right. The alien commanders exchanged glances. They did not fully understand human concepts of honor and pride, but they respected enough to accept his decision. Very well, said. What do you need from us? Everything you have. Hit the swarm from every direction. Make them think the attack is coming from everywhere at once. Keep their attention on you while we slip through. And if you fail, he asked. Smiled grimly. Then you get to say you tried, and you can tell the galaxy that humanity died fighting until the very end. The planning session lasted for hours. Details were worked out. Attack vectors were calculated. Every ship was assigned a role. By the end, they had a plan that might actually work. Might returned to his quarters after the meeting. He needed sleep, but his mind would not quiet. Instead, he sat at his desk and wrote letters. To his wife, who was huddled in a shelter beneath Beijing. To his children, grown now, serving in the ground forces. To friends he had lost in the battle. To the families of those who had died under his command. A knock at his door interrupted him. It was Ambassador. Admiral, she said, may I come in? Of course, I thought you were on Earth. I was, but when I heard about the strike mission, I requested a transfer to the Defiance. She sat down across from him. I want to be part of it. Studied her, was not a soldier. She was a diplomat, a politician, a talker, but there was steel in her eyes that had not been there before the war. This is not your kind of fight, Ambassador. No, but it is my fight, she leaned forward. Admiral, I was there when the Council abandoned us. I watched every species run away. I felt the shame of being left behind. And then I watched our people, ordinary humans, fight and die to protect our home. I need to do my part. Your part is important, Ambassador. When this is over, someone needs to negotiate the peace. Someone needs to make sure humanity has a place in the galaxy. Someone else can do that. Right now I need to fight. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. Report to the strike team briefing at 600. And Ambassador, welcome aboard. Smiled, thank you, Admiral. She left, returned to his letters. But now, strangely, he felt a little better. If people were willing to die for humanity, maybe they really did have a chance. The attack began at dawn, Earth time. The Allied fleet moved out from Earth's orbit in a massive wave. Cruisers took the lead, their silver hulls gleaming in the light of the sun. Dreadnoughts followed, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Crystal ships sparkled like moving stars, and mixed among them, battered but proud, were the surviving ships of humanity's fleet. The swarm responded immediately. They had been watching, waiting, preparing. As the Allied fleet approached, they formed into a defensive formation, millions of bioships creating a living wall between the attackers and the capital ships at their center. All ships engage, ordered. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Energy beams and rail gun rounds and crystal weapons fire poured into the swarm formation. Bioships exploded by the thousands. The swarm fought back with their own weapons, organic projectiles and acid sprays and ramming attacks that destroyed Allied ships wherever they struck. But the Allies kept coming. The dreadnoughts absorbed incredible damage and kept firing. The cruisers danced through the chaos with impossible grace, their pilots centuries old and experienced in ways that humans could not imagine. The channeled energy through their crystal ships, creating beams of destruction that cut through swarm formations like knives. And the humans fought like demons. Directed the battle from the Defiance, his ship at the heart of the human formation. Around him, the surviving crews of humanity's fleet threw themselves at the enemy with reckless courage. Destroyers made kamikaze runs into swarm carriers. Fighters sacrificed themselves to protect larger vessels. Every human ship fought as if the fate of the galaxy depended on them. Because it did. Admiral, Park reported, the swarm is redeploying. They are pulling ships from the western flank to reinforce the center. Saw the opening. Now strike team, go now. A small group of ships broke away from the main battle. 3 human destroyers and a modified corvette carrying Ambassador and the virus payload. They dove into the gap in the swarm's defenses, racing toward the massive command ship at the center of the alien fleet. The swarm noticed too late. By the time they reacted, the strike team was already past the outer defenses. But they were not through yet. Swarm fighters swarmed the strike team, attacking from every direction. The first destroyer, the UTS Courage, was overwhelmed and destroyed, her crew fighting to the last moment. The second destroyer, the UTS Hope, covered the corvette's advance until a swarm ram ship cut her in half. Only the UTS Valor and the corvette remained. Commander Sarah, captain of the Valor, made her decision without hesitation. Corvette, continue to the target. We will cover you. Valor, you cannot hold them alone, protested from the corvette. Watch me, smiled grimly. Ambassador, make this count. Make sure those monsters never forget what humans are capable of. The Valor turned to face the pursuing swarm ships. Her guns blazed, destroying enemy after enemy, but there were too many. They surrounded her, attaching to her hull, eating through her armor. Knew she was dead. She knew her crew was dead. She activated the self-destruct. The Valor exploded in a ball of nuclear fire, taking hundreds of swarm ships with her. The blast cleared a path to the command ship. The corvette was alone. Stood on the tiny bridge, watching the massive swarm command ship fill the. It was enormous, larger than any ship she had ever seen. Its surface pulsed with sickly light, and strange organic structures protruded from its hull like tumors. We are in weapons range, the corvette's pilot reported, preparing to launch the virus payload. Do it. A single missile launched from the corvette, carrying the virus that human scientists had created. It streaked toward the command ship, past the few remaining defenders, and struck the organic hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the command ship shuddered. The lights on its surface flickered. Strange sounds emerged from its hull, sounds that might have been screams if the swarm had voices. And across the entire swarm fleet, chaos erupted. The hive mind signal was gone. Millions of bioships suddenly lost their coordination. They stopped attacking in unison and began moving randomly, crashing into each other, firing at nothing. The great swarm, the terror of the galaxy for millions of years, became nothing more than a confused mob. It worked, whispered. By God, it worked. The corvette turned and raced back toward the Allied fleet. Behind them, the swarm was tearing itself apart. Without the hive mind to guide them, the individual creatures could not function. They were lost, frightened, dying. The Allied fleet did not hesitate. Every ship concentrated fire on the confused enemy. Bioships exploded by the tens of thousands. The swarm, which had seemed invincible just hours ago, was being destroyed. Watched the destruction from the Defiance's bridge. His eyes were wet with tears he did not bother to hide. "Park," he said, "send a message to Earth. Tell them we won." "Yes, Admiral." "And Park, tell them to start planning the victory party." Despite everything, despite the exhaustion and the grief and the losses they had suffered, Park laughed. "Yes, Admiral." The Battle of Saul was over, the swarm was defeated, and humanity, against all odds, had survived. But the work was not done yet. Across the system, pockets of swarm resistance remained. Ships that had somehow maintained their coordination, or creatures that fought on pure instinct. It would take days to hunt them all down, to make sure every last enemy was destroyed. And then there would be the rebuilding. Earth was, millions were dead, cities were destroyed. The scars of the invasion would take generations to heal. But humanity would heal. Humanity always healed. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral sat in his command chair and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, Ambassador's corvette was making its way back to safety. Somewhere out there, the Allied fleet was finishing off the swarm remnants. Somewhere out there, a galaxy was watching and wondering what happened next. Smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was genuine. Humanity had stood alone. Humanity had fought alone. And when the galaxy finally returned, humanity had welcomed them and led them to victory. It was, thought, a pretty good start for a young species. His eyes closed, and for the first time in weeks, Admiral slept peacefully. The war was won. The final battle began 3 days after the virus struck the swarm. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Defiance and studied the tactical display showing what remained of the enemy fleet. The scattered bioships had gathered near Neptune, clustering around the last surviving command ship. Without the hive mind to coordinate them, they moved erratically, bumping into each other, firing at shadows. But they were still dangerous. They still had weapons. And the command ship was trying to restore the hive mind signal. "If they succeed in reconnecting," the War Admiral said during the planning session, "the swarm will regain coordination. We must destroy that last command ship before the signal is restored." Nodded slowly. He looked around the conference room at the assembled commanders and a dozen other species. They had fought together, bled together, died together. 3 weeks ago, they would not have believed such cooperation was possible. Now it felt natural. "The command ship is heavily protected," said. "Even without full coordination, the swarm ships around it will fight to defend it. Any attack will suffer heavy losses." "We have already suffered heavy losses," High Matriarch said quietly. "What is a few more if it means ending this threat forever?" "I am not talking about your losses," said. "I am talking about mine. This is a human fight. We started it. We should finish it." The alien commanders exchanged glances. The War Admiral spoke first. "Admiral, we have discussed this among ourselves. Your species has done more than enough. Let us carry the burden of this final battle." No's voice was firm. The swarm came for Earth. They came for humanity. Our people died by the millions defending our home. We will not step aside at the end and let others take the glory. He paused. Or the risk. Leaned forward. "Admiral, I must ask, why? Why is this so important to you? The war is essentially won. The swarm is crippled. Does it matter who delivers the final blow?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but certain. "When this started, every species in the galaxy told us we were fools for fighting. They told us resistance was suicide. They were right in a way. Fighting the swarm was insane, but we did it anyway. And because we did, you came back. You found your courage again." He looked around the room. "If we step aside now, if we let others finish what we started, the story changes. It becomes a story about how the galaxy saved humanity. We cannot let that happen." "What story do you want it to be?" asked. "I want it to be the truth. I want future generations to know that humanity stood alone against the darkness. I want them to know that we did not wait to be rescued. I want them to know that when the galaxy gave up hope, we kept fighting until hope came back," smiled grimly. "And I want the swarm to remember that humans were the species that broke them. If any of them survive, I want them to fear us. Forever." No one argued after that. The attack force was assembled from what remained of humanity's fleet. 7 ships in total. The Defiance, battered but still fighting. 3 destroyers, 2 frigates. And the newly commissioned UTS Indomitable, a cruiser built during the war from salvaged parts and desperate engineering. She was ugly, patched together from a dozen different designs, but her weapons worked and her crew was eager. Insisted on leading the attack personally. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Park protested, "you should stay with the Allied fleet. Direct the battle from a safe distance." "There is no safe distance in this fight," clapped Park on the shoulder. "Besides, I am tired of watching other people die while I give orders from the rear. It is time I earned my place in this war." Park looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew it was pointless. He had served with long enough to know when the old man had made up his mind. "Then I am coming with you," Park said. "I was hoping you would say that." Ambassador was waiting for in the docking bay. She had refused evacuation to Earth after the virus delivery mission. She said there was too much work to do in space, coordinating between the human fleet and the alien allies, but suspected she just could not bring herself to leave. "Admiral," she said, "I wanted to wish you luck." "Thank you, Ambassador. When this is over, you will have the biggest job of anyone, rebuilding humanity's place in the galaxy." "I know," smiled slightly. "I have already started planning. The other species are eager to help. They feel guilty about abandoning us. I intend to use that guilt shamelessly." Laughed. "That sounds like the I know. Make sure they remember what humanity did here. Make sure they never forget." "I will, Admiral, I promise." They shook hands, then boarded the Defiance and prepared for war. The human attack force departed at midnight, Earth time. They traveled in formation toward Neptune, 7 small ships against the remnants of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. Around them, the Allied fleet took up supporting positions. They would provide covering fire and engage any swarm ships that tried to intercept the strike force. Stood on the Defiance's bridge and watched the stars pass. Somewhere behind him, Earth hung in the darkness but healing. 8 billion people were rebuilding their lives, mourning their dead, hoping for a future. They were counting on him to secure that future. He would not fail them. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "the swarm formation is in visual range." The main filled with the enemy. Thousands of bioships, clustering protectively around the massive command ship. The command ship itself was the largest swarm vessel anyone had ever seen, nearly 50 kilometers long, pulsing with organic energy. Strange structures on its surface were glowing brighter and brighter as it tried to restore the hive mind signal. Time until the signal is restored, asked. Approximately 30 minutes, based on energy readings. 30 minutes to break through the defenses and destroy the command ship. It was not much time, but it would have to be enough. All ships attack formation, target the command ship. Everything else is secondary. The human fleet surged forward. Around them, the Allied fleet opened fire on the outer swarm defenses, drawing attention away from the strike force. Cruisers engaged groups of bioships. Dreadnoughts unleashed devastating salvos. Crystal beams carved through enemy formations. The human ships dove into the gap and raced toward their target. The swarm responded with everything they had. Bioships swarmed the human formation, firing acid projectiles and trying to ram the attacking vessels. The first destroyer, the UTS Victory, was hit by a ram ship and lost her engines. Her captain ordered the crew to abandon ship, then set the reactor to overload. The explosion destroyed a dozen enemy vessels and cleared a path deeper into the formation. Victoria's sacrifice will not be wasted, said quietly. All ships increase speed, push through. The frigates pulled ahead, their smaller profiles making them harder to hit. They drew enemy fire away from the larger ships, their point defense weapons working overtime to shoot down incoming projectiles. One frigate, the UTS Reliant, was overwhelmed and destroyed. The other, the UTS Resilient, kept fighting. The destroyers spread out, each one targeting clusters of swarm ships. Their rail guns tore through bioarmor. Their missiles found targets in the chaos. They bought time with their lives. The UTS Courage lasted longest, her crew fighting like demons until a swarm carrier rammed her broadside. The two ships tumbled together into a larger bioship, all three exploding in a massive fireball. Now only the Defiance, the Indomitable, and the wounded Resilient remained. Command ship in range, the weapons officer reported. All weapons fire. The three ships unleashed everything they had: rail gun rounds, missiles, energy weapons salvaged from alien allies. The barrage struck the command ship's hull, tearing holes in its organic armor, exposing the pulsing structures beneath. But the command ship was massive. The damage was significant, but it was not enough. The signal restoration is accelerating, the sensor officer reported, voice tight with fear. They are routing more power to the broadcast systems. 10 minutes until full restoration. Made his decision instantly. Helm set collision course with the command ship, maximum speed. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what that order meant. Park stepped forward. Admiral, there might be another way. There is no other way. His voice was calm. The Defiance is too damaged to survive another engagement anyway. We barely have life support. We have almost no ammunition left. The only weapon we have left is the ship itself. Then let me stay. Let me pilot the ship while you evacuate. No, I have given enough orders for other people to die. It is time I followed my own orders for once. Looked around the bridge at his crew. All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. No one moved. Admiral, Park said quietly, we have served together for 5 years. I am not leaving now. The sensor officer spoke up. My brother died at Mars. I want to see this through. My wife is on Earth, the weapons officer added. If we do not stop the swarm here, they will try again. I am staying. One by one, every member of the bridge crew refused to leave. Looked at them, these brave men and women who had followed him through impossible battles, and felt his eyes grow wet. You are all insubordinate, he said, his voice rough with emotion, and I have never been prouder to serve with you. He turned to the communications officer. Send a message to the Indomitable and the Resilient. Tell them to break off and get clear, and send a message to the Allied fleet. Tell them, he paused, searching for the right words. Tell them it has been an honor. The messages were sent. The 2 remaining human ships reluctantly pulled back. The Defiance, alone now, accelerated toward the command ship. The swarm saw the danger. Bioships swarmed toward the Defiance, trying to stop her, but it was too late. She was too close, moving too fast. Projectiles hammered her hull. Acid ate through her armor. Systems failed one by one. Watched the command ship grow larger and larger on the strange structures on its surface were glowing brighter now, almost ready to restore the hive mind, almost ready to reconnect the swarm and start the nightmare all over again. "Almost there," he murmured. An explosion rocked the ship. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in red. "Hull breach in multiple sections," someone reported. "We are losing atmosphere." "Stay the course, almost there." The command ship filled could see details now, organic patterns that might have been writing or art or something else entirely. The swarm was alien in ways that no one fully understood. Maybe, in another universe, they could have communicated. Maybe they could have found peace. But not in this universe, not after everything they had done. "Impact in 10 seconds, the helm officer announced. Stood from his command chair. He thought about his wife, safe in Beijing. He thought about his children, brave soldiers fighting on the ground. He thought about all the people he had lost, all the sacrifices that had led to this moment. "It has been an honor," he said softly. The Defiance struck the command ship at maximum velocity. The kinetic energy was enormous, more than enough to penetrate the organic armor and reach the core. The ship's reactor, already damaged and unstable, went critical on impact. The explosion was visible from Earth. The command ship died instantly, torn apart by the combined force of the impact and the reactor detonation. The structures that were trying to restore the hive mind signal were destroyed. The signal died forever. And across the system, the surviving swarm ships went completely still. Without the command ship, without any hope of restoring coordination, the swarm had nothing left. The remaining bioships drifted aimlessly, their weapons silent, their engines dead. They were not destroyed. They simply gave up. The Allied fleet moved in carefully, destroying the helpless swarm vessels one by one. It was not a battle anymore. It was cleanup. High Matriarch watched from the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn as the last swarm bioship was destroyed. They showed the wreckage of the command ship, still burning in the darkness of space. Somewhere in that wreckage was what remained of the Defiance and her crew. "They did it," she whispered. "They actually did it." Ambassador stood beside her. Her face was wet with tears, but her voice was steady. "Admiral always said that humans do not know how to give up. I guess he was right." He was more than right. Turned to face the human ambassador. "Ambassador, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend our deepest condolences for your losses, and our deepest gratitude. Humanity has saved us all." "We saved each other," said. "We could not have won without your help." "You could not have won," agreed. "But you would have kept fighting anyway. You would have fought until the last human was dead. That is what shamed us into returning. That is what gave us courage." She paused. "Ambassador, the Council will be reconvening soon. We will need to discuss the future of the galaxy. The old order is gone. The swarm changed everything. We need new leadership." "What are you suggesting?" Smiled, a strange expression on her silver face. "I am suggesting that humanity should lead the new council. You have earned it." Was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head slowly. "No, humanity does not want to lead the galaxy. We just want to be part of it." She turned to look out the viewport at the distant sun. "But we will not be ignored anymore. We will not be dismissed as primitive newcomers. We will have a voice. And when danger comes, we will not run." "Then what do you propose?" "Partnership, real partnership. Every species working together, sharing knowledge and resources and responsibility. Not one species ruling, but all species cooperating." Smiled slightly. "It will not be easy. We will argue, we will disagree, but we will face the future together." Considered this. It was not what she had expected. Most species, given the chance to rule, would have taken it. But then again, humans were not most species. "I will present your proposal to the council," she said finally. "I believe they will accept it." Good turned away from the viewport. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have memorial services to plan, and a lot of letters to write to families who lost loved ones." "Of course, Ambassador, one more thing." "Yes, Admiral, what he did at the end. Why, he could have escaped, he could have lived." Was quiet for a moment, remembering the tired old man who had led humanity's fleet, the man who had made impossible decisions, the man who had refused to give up. "Because that is who he was," she said finally. "He could not ask others to sacrifice what he was not willing to sacrifice himself. He was not just our admiral, he was our symbol, and symbols matter." Nodded slowly. "I think I understand. I think I finally understand humans." 1 month later, a memorial was dedicated on the surface of Luna. It stood at the site of the old lunar defense platforms, looking out at Earth. The memorial was simple, just a white stone pillar with names carved into its surface. Every human who died in the war was listed there. Millions of names, in letters too small to read without help. At the top of the pillar, larger than the others, was carved a simple inscription in every known galactic language. Here humanity stood. Here the galaxy REMEMBERED how to fight. Below that, a single name in bold letters. Admiral MARCUSCHEN. Ambassador stood before the memorial, surrounded by representatives from every species in the galaxy, and dozens of others. They had come to pay their respects to the species that had saved them. "We came to the stars looking for friends," said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "We found a galaxy that thought we were too young, too weak, too foolish to matter. When danger came, they ran. They expected us to die." She paused, looking at the endless list of names. "They were wrong. We did not die. We fought. We bled. We sacrificed everything we had. And in the end, we won." Her voice grew stronger. "Not because we were the strongest or the most advanced. We won because we refused to give up. We won because we believe that some things are worth dying for. We won because we are human." She turned to face the alien representatives. "You came back when you saw us fighting. You found your courage again because we showed you what courage looks like. That is the legacy of everyone whose name is on this monument. They died so that the galaxy could live. They died so that fear would not win." Looked up at the stars, at the distant suns where other species were already rebuilding their lives. "The swarm is gone, the war is over, but the lesson remains. The galaxy is full of dangers. There will be other threats, other enemies, other moments when running seems easier than fighting. When those moments come, remember this place. Remember what humanity did here. Remember that hope is stronger than fear and courage is stronger than despair." She placed her hand on the cold white stone. "Here humanity stood. Here we showed the galaxy what we are made of, and as long as there are humans in the universe, we will keep standing, no matter what comes." The crowd was silent. Then slowly the alien representatives began to applaud. The sound grew, filling the dome, echoing out into space. Step back from the memorial. The ceremony was over. The war was over. But humanity's story was just beginning. Far away in the rebuilt cities of Earth, people looked up at the night sky with new eyes. They were not afraid anymore. They knew that the darkness was full of wonders as well as dangers, and they knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Humanity had stood alone against the odds. Humanity had won. And the galaxy would never forget.